Hello, licensed mental health clinician and end-of-life doula, Ami Clark here. And today, a good friend of mine, who I used to actually go to high school with, reminded me that I really should talk about codependency and what it is. This person actually explained to me that they've never really had it explained to them correctly. So they were not sure of what codependency actually is. So first I'm going to start with a story, and it's a transparent story about me and my experience with codependency, and then I will define it. So in my last marriage, before it was a marriage, I was obviously dating my ex. Okay, we started seeing each other in 2004, and he came from a different culture than me. You know, he was Jewish. He was Russian Jewish. And his parents immigrated. They immigrated here in about like 1978. It's when apparently the Russians were letting all the Jewish people out. So they got out. And they ended up in the States. Anyway, fast forward to me dating their son. I noticed that I had not been introduced to his parents as of yet. And so I asked about it, and he would always say, you know, the time will come or when they're ready or what have you. So something really weird would happen, and this is where it gets kind of cringeworthy. When he would visit his parents, I was not allowed in the apartment. So I was told to wait outside, and sometimes waiting outside would be for 30 minutes. And I did that, and I'll never forget that one time that I did it. One of the times that I did it, I noticed there was a couple next door, and apparently his girlfriend went in and he waited outside, and we were waiting outside for about the same amount of time. And I remember we looked at each other, and it was as if we understood, yeah, we may be persona non grata for a while. See, the real question should be asked here. The real question is, why the fuck was I waiting outside in the hallway? That's the question. That should have been red flag number one, honestly, because that was a huge red flag. But the red flags were there way before that one, and I ignored them. I have issues. I have struggled with codependency, and now I'm going to read the actual definition of codependency in mental health terms. Codependency is a psychological concept that describes an extreme and one-sided relationship dynamic where someone is excessively dependent on the other person in that relationship. Codependency is also known as a relationship addiction, or the addiction to people. Okay? That's our drug, right? People. And can affect people in many types of relationships, including romantic, familial, and professional. And that is very true. I have a bad codependency in my relationships. It's me that is codependent a lot of the time. So I've been in therapy for it for a long time. And I'm now in trauma therapy, which has been even more helpful because I'm able to now ask myself what I want. And also, you know, be okay with the fact that I don't have to do the things I don't want all the time. And also to recognize if my relationship is one-sided, that I should bring it up instead of just sitting down and letting it happen. Now, luckily, the marriage I'm in now and the marriage I intend to stay in is not like that. While I struggle with my codependency issues, they come up a lot. I also know for a fact, because of the therapy, that it's on me. The codependency is about me. It's not about my husband. You see, before I actually got help with this, the codependency was all about the other person, okay? But really, it was the fact that I was codependent. I put everyone else's needs before my own, specifically in romantic relationships. Always their needs before mine. And it really hurt a lot of the time, but the mentality I had in my head was, if I do what they say and I do what they like, they're not going to leave me, which is also extremely toxic. It's a toxic way of thinking. Codependency is many different things. Parents can be codependent on their children. A good example of this would be, there's a book called When Parents Love Too Much. If you look it up, it actually exists. And it's about the codependency between parents and their children and vice versa, where the parents who are so codependent on their children, they basically interrupt their children's lives who are adults. And then there's adult children who enable it. They enable this. That was my ex-husband's problem in codependency. His codependency involved his parents. And he enabled a lot of their negative and toxic actions in my direction. And that caused a big rift in our relationship, along with the other codependencies he had, considering it, that was addiction. So codependency, if you want to think of it this way, is putting everyone else's needs, not your needs, but everyone else's needs before yours, or putting the needs of the person in your relationship before yours, always, to the point where there's a resentment that builds. Another good example of this would be if you're in a relationship with an addict. Codependent people tend to enable the addiction because they're afraid. They're addicted to the person. They're afraid of losing them. When I was going to codependence of sex addicts, because my ex was a sex addict, I actually went to it's like a 12-step program. I went to those meetings and I learned that his addiction had nothing to do with me. It was very hard to accept because I thought it was about me. I thought I wasn't enough. The reality is I just wasn't enough for him. And that's not my fault. That's him, and he had to take care of that. So I would like to ask every one of you on here who watch these videos, in what ways do you consider yourself codependent? Are you codependent in your relationship? Have you experienced codependency in your relationships? What was it like? How did you get through it? Do you recognize it? I look forward to hearing about it in the comments. Thank you.